Loading complete.
Pretty bold statement.
I mean, not for me, but it is to other people, so I'll easily say that. As someone that didn't like Toy Story 3 that much. But that's a can of worms for another day.
Sounds
so
like
this
it.
is the reset button.
Oh, you want to do the opening, do you?
Yeah, let's do the show.
Okay, you do the opening. Let's hear it. Give it your best shot.
Shit, it's been a long time. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Memory Card Race. No, that was a different show.
Oh, no.
Shit. I've done like 20,000 shows, but none of them had this name, so I don't know how to do this. Get me out of the hot seat. I'm not worthy.
All right, I'll take it over for you. I'll bail you out.
Nick cannoned me out of this situation. He's taking over.
Should I do it the old way back in like the DTT days? Should I do it that way?
Sure. Why not?
Oh my god. So I'll do it the old school way for everybody's listening to the edited version if you're here live. Oh my god. So for ResetPress and everywhere else you may be listening, this is the reset button for October 19th, 2017. I'm Patrick, and the guy giggling over there is Eric. He has done horrible things to me.
Now, this particular episode is a little more casual. Unfortunately, we're not able to meet in the same area. And we know what we're going to talk about, so we got a topic. But this is a little more of a laid-back episode compared to normal because we have a very specific conversational point. We're going to break a rule here. We used to never... We had a rule here. It was unspoken, but we would never talk about gaming news. Because it's boring. You hear that every other show, and we wanted to talk about topics you've never heard of. Today, we have lost that unique privilege because today is a special day.
The most special of days. Kind of like being stabbed in the heart a couple times is a special day.
A little bit. So, I don't know if you guys heard, but Visceral Studios, rest in peace.
There's been a death in the family, folks.
It's almost like EA ruined another company and then shot it in the back, and now it's dead. I don't know if that's ever happened before, but it just seems like I've heard that story somewhere before.
I don't know. I'll have to go ask Maxis really quick. Oh, wait. Oh.
Let me check. Let me check Origin. Oh wait, that became a platform instead of a studio. Good job, guys.
How's Bullfrog hanging in? Oh no.
Lionhead Studios is gonna be great. Oh wait, that's Microsoft, but it's the same idea.
It's pretty much the same issue there. But basically, when we restarted the reset button, because for a little while when Tanner was still here, we had Super Reset Brothers. That was very news heavy, and I said when the reset button relaunched, no gaming news. It's going to be straight off the cuss. It's going to be interesting conversations every week, stuff you can only get if you were right here. This week, because the bastards at AAA land have done a full front assault, we have no choice.
Before we get to like AAA and EA, I want to run down a little bit of the history of Visceral to explain how we got here. Visceral was always an EA studio. They were literally people that worked for EA that wanted to make original projects. So they were created with the intention of doing something bold. Their first game, of course, was Dead Space, the first game, and it was a solid little horror title when horror wasn't supposed to sell. That is something that's still heavily debated, whether horror can sell. Resident Evil 7 didn't sell as well as 6 did, being a full horror title, but whatever. So Dead Space was this little project, and it was damn good. It had a lot of good atmosphere, very interesting story, good characters. So what did EA do with Dead Space? Before they ruined it, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, didn't they whore it out for a bit? I remember like a Dead Space book and a Dead Space anime.
There was an anime.
And they were hyping the shit out of Dead Space 2, which was like this action horror game. And
it was,
tried to...
Yeah, it was an action horror game. And also the other thing they did with Dead Space 2 that made a lot of fans a little leery, and with good reason, is they added multiplayer. No,
you're thinking of 3.
No, there was multiplayer in Dead Space 2 as well.
No, there was not. I'm positive of this.
Okay.
Because 3 not only added the... I'll get there. Dead Space 2 was a single-player game, but what they did do is that the main character gained a voice actor. He used to be a silent protagonist, and then they added voice acting to him.
Okay, hold on. I need you to stop. Because in terms of it, Dead Space 2 multiplayer consists of team-based matches broken down into 2 rounds each. Players take turns playing Sprawl security officers and the Necromorph Horde. So one side plays the security officers, one side plays the Necromorphs. I should know because I had the game. Anyway.
What the fuck?
That's why people were a little leery. Because they added multiplayer in for no reason.
Okay, for 3 I knew about the co-op. I didn't realize they added in... God damn it, EA!
There was full-blown multiplayer in Dead Space 2. Yes, sir.
Fucking hell. And then I hear so much about how it didn't make back its budget, even though it made like 5 million copies sold. But that's great. Fucking Visceral.
I didn't mean to derail you, but you said that wasn't true, and that...
I was so... positive.
That's a huge part of the story because, okay, let's reshift the narrative here. So Dead Space 1, a really good horror game that had all the right resources. It had the whole, you're on the run, they're after you, they're hunting you, you have limited ammo to protect yourself. All the right things for a survival horror game. Great. Dead Space 2, it gets a little more action-y. Now it kind of turns into you're hunting them, you have plenty of ammo, and they throw in a multiplayer aspect just to kind of get that taste. So, draw in more people. Draw in the casuals to say, well, if you can't handle single player, you've got the multiplayer. So that was Dead Space 2. 3 is when they just went full-blown bastard.
Yeah, it was entirely an action game. It had co-op with story elements, but more particularly... it had microtransactions, and this was before the loot box, which is the famous thing now, where you could buy inventory, so you didn't have to grind for materials to have weapons. Originally, you just found the weapons. Now you had to craft everything.
Right.
It wasn't even unfair, like the speed of it, but just the fact there were microtransactions in it, it just ruined the design. Because it's a horror game, crafting just didn't work as well. Like, there's something about finding a weapon that is just more satisfying. So here they are, they ruined Dead Space 3 with all these additional things that were not there. And then they force them to do Battlefield Hardline. So, they do a single player for a Battlefield game that nobody really asked for, and it wasn't very good, but I don't blame anyone at Visceral. It had some unique story beats to it, but it's nothing that you need to play.
Right.
And that's their final game. Good job, EA.
And the writing was on the wall before something like this even happened, because let's roll back to after Dead Space 3 released. If anybody remembers, because I certainly do when I was covering this, because Dead Space 3 didn't sell the way they were expecting, oh no, we didn't get the money we thought we would, they announced that the Dead Space franchise was on permanent hiatus until they decided to bring it back. That was one time they did something like this already. What's
interesting about EA, and why we're here today, is that they will never acknowledge their personal failures. They will always acknowledge it as, well, I guess the series isn't that popular anymore. No matter what they do to it. Most recent example, there was I don't know if you heard, there was this game called Mass Effect Andromeda came out recently. That's also on permanent hiatus right now. I don't know if they know that they ruined the game, which they did, because that was a game that was forced into this open world design, and which weirdly didn't have anything to do with the microtransactions or monetization values, which we'll get to later. But like, they tried to make it such a bigger game than it needed to be when it was already Mass Effect, and it just completely failed. on all those levels, and it doesn't work. But now, here we are with a Star Wars game from a team that's very good at making linear action games. What is it that EA said? Why did they shut down the studio?
They didn't 100% say it, but pretty much they're wanting it to be more multiplayer. They don't want that single-player experience because they want the consumer to get their full worth.
We've been talking about this for a while, between loot boxes and AAA gaming going into multiplayer-focused games as service things.
Right.
And for the record, I'll be honest, I like games as a service. I do not have a problem with games as service because it makes a game matter longer and it prevents you from selling your game. One of the games that did this very well was Witcher 3. Witcher 3 had DLC that was free, released, I think, every week for a total of 3 months after the initial release, with just like bonus quests and new stuff coming out. There was still substantial DLC. They still made more money off me. It didn't affect that, but they were able to keep my interest in the game and not sell it off because of using games as a service. So I don't have a problem with that. Where I have the problem is that it seems like we're so scared. We're just so terrified of having single-player games now. We can't do it. And I have a list of the biggest games that came out this year. And this is why I'm always confused when I keep hearing about the demand for how single-player games are dead. Let me fetch that list. One moment.
Sure. And while you're doing that, I'll go ahead and talk about that a bit more. The whole, we have to have multiplayer games. Single-player games are dead. The big thing there is it's probably true for casuals. So let's just say that. It's probably true for casuals, and they've been conditioned to feel that way. So
on Metacritic, as of this year, these are the biggest games that came out this year. All right? Mm-hmm. Tell me if any of these sound single-player and needed that multiplayer online infrastructure. Right. Zelda, of course, is number one, which I think was a single-player game last time I checked. Had some DLC, but it's fine. Persona 5, single-player game.
Yep.
Divinity Original Sin 2, while it does have multiplayer, it could be totally played as a single-player game. It is not a game as service. It does not have loot boxes or any form of microtransaction.
Nope.
Nier Automata, single-player game.
Completely.
Horizon Zero Dawn, single-player game. Hollow Knight, Steam World Dig 2, What Remains of Edith Finch, Cuphead, and Neo. Those are the highest rated Metacritic games of this year, and not one of them is a multiplayer-focused, loot box-driven game. Every single one of those is proof that single-player games can still exist, and I don't know why we keep pretending they can't.
But why on earth would companies like EA want to force multiplayer on us? Why oh why?
I get monetization because you want to squeeze out as much money as you can. It's fucking Star Wars! You think Star Wars isn't gonna sell? And don't give me that, we really desperately need the money. There's
we lost you for a second. You cut out.
Well, it's like Star Wars is going to make its money, but you already have Battlefront coming out. You already have your loot box-driven multiplayer Star Wars game. Mm-hmm. Why do we need another? Why can't we just have a linear fucking Star Wars game?
I couldn't tell you, because keep in mind with something like the new Battlefront coming out, it's going to have just like every other game, I assume it's going to have 3 different editions, one of which is going to be like $120 or more. So there's that money that they just desperately need. Guys, they're not getting enough money with the $60 game, except to get the full experience, and Jim Sterling already covered this. You don't pay $60 and get the full experience. That doesn't happen anymore with these. You have to end up paying a lot more. Oftentimes, $120 is around the number that you end up having to pay for the full experience. But oh wait, there's going to be loot boxes. Oh wait, there's going to be plenty of microtransactions. You really think it's stopping at $120? No.
It's infinite money. They'll just continue to give you money. And DLC, I am perfectly fine with. I used to think there was content cut from a game, and that's always disappointing. But DLC just means I get more of the game, or I'm paying the price that it probably deserves to be paid. This is what they value the game actually as once I buy all the DLC. So, buy the game, get a season's pass, and you basically paid what probably should have been the price of the game in the first place. We're getting it super cheap, whatever. If that's the motive you want to look at it like that. But loot boxes is not just gambling, but it is like an infinite, I'm never necessarily going to get what I want, and I'm going to continue to throw money at it until I hopefully get that thing. And that seems very underhanded to me. It feels very dirty. I just don't see a fucking way to defend it. It doesn't feel like that is money that's going necessarily just towards a service. I'd much rather fucking buy new DLC. But, like, I also understand the catch-22. I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second, right?
Go ahead.
Battlefield 1 comes out. And it has map packs. And no one fucking buys the map packs. Because they're $50. Like, that's a lot of money for maps. So, if you bought the maps, you had no one to play with because no one else bought the maps but you. So I get the frustration of that, and if the argument is, well, now you get all the content for free, I hear you. I'm totally okay with Overwatch having loot boxes, but, you know, that's all cosmetic. That's all
right.
Just like... and even then, I have problems with the fact that there's, like, holiday times where you have to get a certain loot box at a certain time of the year, and it may never be available ever again.
That actually goes back just a couple episodes ago when we were talking about that, but I mean, this is what we were discussing, like, dialed up to 20. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the big reason why when it comes to these loot crates and the new Star Wars game and whatever they're going to bastardize the current in development Star Wars game with, because effervescent asphyxiation is not going to stop. Basically, with these loot boxes, it's not going to be like cosmetics. We already know that. What it's actually going to end up being is it's going to be perks for your character when you're playing online. This is a problem simply because the person who, you know, pays more into it and actually gets things from the loot box, they're going to have things that can just tear you apart in online multiplayer. That incentivizes you to buy more loot boxes. It's pay to win. It's complete pay to win.
It is pay to win.
And they're not masking that.
I don't know what the new Star Wars is going to be, because we don't even know what the game is. But if it was the third-person action game that we were expecting, I just can't imagine how this even works online in the first place. You have to change the entire game design. And if they do, why did you hire Amy Hennig from Naughty Dog? Because, like, she has one thing she's good at, and that thing is very specific. It's story-driven video games. And that's a damn good thing to be perfect at. But talk about your wasted talent. Like, you fucking hired one of the greatest fucking people you could have had, one of the best directors, and you're gonna make a fucking multiplayer game out of it?
I think they probably brought her in just to ruin her life at this point.
Maybe.
I just don't get it.
She was fired from Naughty Dog, unfortunately. I mean, that's why she didn't work there. But the more you look into why she was fired, the more frustrating it is. But that's a whole can of worms.
Yeah, that's a whole different story that has nothing to do with what's going on here. The other thing that I was going to talk about today, we were going to bring up, is what we learned about from Activision recently. Within the past 24 hours, this came out. This makes EA look like a walk through the park. Because while EA does what they do, they try to mask it. They don't outright come out and throw it in your face. They're not that hardcore. Activision, however, is. So,
hey, I have a question before we continue. What's the isn't there a full name? Isn't it Activision something? Isn't there like a word after Activision that you should use when you say the name?
I know what you're trying to do, and
Activision,
yes, Blizzard.
Oh, well, okay. So you're saying okay. Go continue. I just had to throw that there.
Oh, that's true. If you want me to use the full professional name of that company, Activision Blizzard is way more hardcore than EA when it comes to this, because they will outright throw it in your face. They applied for a patent 2 years ago that will blatantly make an online experience unfair against your odds if you haven't bought loot boxes, in a blatant attempt to push you toward buying loot boxes. That patent was just approved. So they own it now. They can use it.
So you're telling me that the studio, the company that basically popularized popular. I can't say the word today. Made loot boxes popular.
There we go.
Also are about to make them as bad as humanly possible. It seems to me that this might be the dirtiest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. Because not only, like, they were the ones that made it okay by making it cosmetic, and now they're going the full other way about it.
Right.
Fuck AAA gaming.
So let's go back to reset button memory lane here, because just a few weeks ago, when we were talking about this, we were saying that we didn't really have that big of an issue with Overwatch. We thought, man, they're kind of bastards for doing that, but at least it's only cosmetic, and we're not super mad at you, Blizzard. But you kind of have to remember that when you deal with Blizzard, it's like a two-headed giant. What's the other head doing? We found out. So you can't separate one from the other. Now you know, while Activision was applying for this patent, Blizzard was testing the waters to see how people would respond to it. Now we see the full picture, and it's not a pretty picture.
While the patent was approved, that doesn't mean they haven't been doing this the entire time.
Oh, of course.
Now they own the patent.
They own the patent. They can blatantly, they can blatantly throw it out there and be like, this is our intellectual property. This is our invention, which is exactly what the patent called it. It's an invention that they own that they could use to do whatever the hell they want to do. I mean, if they wanted to put it in Heroes of the Storm, or if they wanted to put it in Overwatch now, they own it. It's their invention. They can do what they want with it.
I can't fucking wait for the next Diablo to come out, and then it's just going to be, instead of picking up weapons, what's going to happen is you're going to pick up keys, and then you go with those keys to get a loot box.
Oh, no.
You know that's fucking happening.
That's why they're not wanting to talk about Diablo at the moment.
They're trying to figure out how to monetize it because it's the only franchise that they had an attempt, it failed, and now they don't know how they're supposed to handle it. That is the only reason we don't have a new Diablo expansion or any content whatsoever for Diablo. And it might be a dead series because they don't know how to monetize it unless they get clever by getting greedy about it. Which is a really dark way to look at it, but it's what it is. I can't read it any other way.
That is dark.
Really unfortunate.
That is dark and unfortunate, but I think you have a point there, because when it first released, and this is going to sound like the silliest thing in the world, but keep in mind, technology moves this fast, guys. So when Diablo 3 first released was in 2012. It was a blatant mess of a game, just a broken mess. They fixed it with Repurb Souls, but they had to completely bring in a different team. They had to pretty much build from the ground up. They put a lot into it, a whole lot of money and everything into that game with not a whole lot back. So I'm sure they're looking at this game and they're thinking, this is a failure. That's what this is. It's a complete failure. And
why did we only get one expansion? Like, I think this is an important question.
It is.
It is one of the most popular fucking PC games of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And they made the hard expansion to make, but they only made one. My guess would be so the brand looks better. Not just Diablo, but Blizzard as a whole. It cannot have a weak link. So it seems to me that they made the Diablo 3 expansion purely so that Diablo looks better. They look better. Man, aren't Blizzard great guys? And that's the only reason you only got that one, because after that it's just expected content.
That's
what
fair to say.
Diablo got? Necromancer? Who fucking put in $10 for Necromancer?
Oh, I did.
I have played that game to death by the time Necromancer came out. I cannot play it another time. I have put more time into Diablo 3 than I did 2, and that is insane to say.
I just have to say, full disclosure, I did buy the Necromancer pack.
Was it worth it?
No.
That's what I thought.
Absolutely not. Like, for the price that they put out there, you get one character class, and then the rest is like some cosmetic shit, where it's like, oh, here, he's got bone wings, and then some other stuff. The other content you got, it was part of a regular update. You didn't actually have to get the Necromancer pack to get the new updated stuff, so yeah, that was a real kick in the face. So I think you're onto something, though. So with Activision Blizzard, I should say, so they don't really like to have weak links because, once again, AAA company hitting home runs everywhere, except you mentioned one area. I'm going to bring up they're not hitting home runs in two areas. One is Diablo 3, not hitting home runs there. The other one is StarCraft. They're not hitting home runs there. And, let me explain why.
Go on.
Because in terms of it, yeah, you'll hear everything you want to hear about StarCraft when it comes to like the tournament scene, people playing, tournaments and whatnot, the pro players. But when you're talking about the people actually purchasing the game, the casuals, they're having a little bit of the Street Fighter effect here. There aren't really people diving into it as much as they would hope.
I think you're making one major mistake.
Okay.
Which is that there was a StarCraft release that I don't think you're acknowledging here, and it's called StarCraft Remastered, baby.
Oh, yeah, that was the one area where they were hoping to like, you guys aren't really liking StarCraft 2? You like StarCraft Brood Wars? We have a solution.
I think they've moved past StarCraft. It's not that they're doing wrong by it, although this also has a similar issue with monetization. But I do feel like StarCraft is one of those things that they had an end point in mind and they hit it. And now that it's done, because like StarCraft 2 has been planned out for so long how this was going to go. Like this was way before these conversations showed up.
Right.
But like StarCraft 2 was always going to be initial game and 2 expansions. And the 2 expansions would be treated as full release games. And that's why, if you finish all of it, StarCraft 2 does not end hoping for a StarCraft 3. It is done. StarCraft, there is no sequel to StarCraft 2. I don't expect that series to ever come back, or at least if it does, it'll have to be rebooted in one form or another, because that ending is fucking definitive. And I'm okay with that. I think they ended it well. As a tournament scene, there isn't much there. But also, I think they made other games to compensate for it. Heroes of the Storm has stolen its place. And I'm not saying in terms of, like, size, but for Blizzard, I think MOBA has just conquered the RTS space.
Yes.
And I think that's how they're looking at it now.
You would be fair to say that, simply because, and you may not know this, but those 2 games use the same engine.
You learn something new every day.
Yeah, they use the exact same engine. So when you're seeing Heroes of the Storm, basically you're seeing StarCraft and you're only able to control one unit instead of multiple. That's the big difference. That's it.
I completely believe it, too, because StarCraft 2 has that, like, really good engine.
Yeah.
Like, I've played a fucking MMO out of StarCraft. It was amazing.
Well, keep
World
in
of
mind...
StarCraft, if you look that up, it's fascinating.
Keep in mind where the whole MOBA came from, too. Because it was Defenders of the Ancients. And that came from Warcraft 3.
Warcraft 3, so it all kind of just bleeds out of each other.
Yeah, continuing to use the Blizzard RTS engine. So it makes perfect sense that they use the SC2 engine to make Heroes. And you're right, it is overtaking. So StarCraft, it's not really hitting home runs. At this point, it doesn't need to, and they're going to put that on the back burner, probably never hear from it again. Diablo might go the same direction.
I think Diablo's done, which is a shame because it's my favorite Blizzard series.
I think if they put more thought into it, it still had time, but what can you do?
I think it is. What's weird about it is it's also like the best one for games of service. And they've been doing that. Diablo 3 is totally games of service. Like, that's what seasons are. It is new content coming out and, like, continually for free. But there's just no way to give them money. And that's like, that's one of the best deals you could ever ask for. It's not that amazing of content that they give you. It's usually like, here's a dungeon, or here's a small little area, or a couple new items. But it's there, and it keeps the game... It gives me another reason to play it again. Which, fuck, I'm probably going to play Diablo 3 when we're done talking. But,
now that we've been discussing it.
I've put so much time in that fucking game, but Diablo is just like one of the easiest games to play. But yeah, it's probably dead. So going on the AAA conversation.
Yes.
Here's a question for you, and I say this with no lead up. Do you feel like single player AAA is dead, or do you think it is big publisher AAA?
Big publisher AAA is probably dead, because here's why I say that. I don't know if there's truth in it, but I have a severe hope that big publisher AAA is single player is going to be dead, simply because I don't want that to happen with all studios and all publishers, because then, like, you just introduced me to a wonderful series called Nier.
Yeah.
And if we say that that's going to happen across the board, then Nier is in a lot of trouble. Nier's in danger.
Don't make me think about that. I know.
Yeah, that's the thing you just brought up, and that's terrifying.
When I came to tell you that they now view it as a major franchise, I said that with a little bit of hesitation. I'm not just excited. I'm very nervous. Because Nier is, especially, like, you have not completed Automata. You are borrowing it. But that has probably one of the most beautiful meanings I've ever gotten out of a video game. There is no world where multiplayer forced shit or a shared universe could ever do. Now, there is multiplayer in that game, believe it or not.
No.
But it's very subtle. And it handles itself in a way that couldn't be monetized. It is not a game where extra monetization could work.
Excellent.
Hot take, and this is where this all comes really into it, and this is where I'm going to sound like a pretentious douche. Can you be art and also do this monetization bullshit? Can you be art with a microtransaction? I don't know if you can. Can loot boxes ever really... Can you tell a story and have it really resonate with a loot box?
Have you heard of Shadow of War?
I have, and everyone hates the story. I'm talking about a game where, like, people actually gave a shit. I got
Shadow of War has a portion of its story hitting one of those.
I got a fucking interesting game because I'm actually setting up a narrative with this. There's this little game. It's called Metal Gear Solid 5. It's kind of every fear that I have proven. Here's a game that is a sequel to a very wonderful story, one of the greatest written stories in gaming, one of the greatest directors in gaming, Metal Gear, and he makes 5, and while it is not like a shared universe thing, it does have elements of that. There's players that can come into your thing and has microtransactions that fuel the game design, and I'll be honest, minute-to-minute gameplay is great, but most people that I know cannot fucking stand that game. I've heard so much negativity with Metal Gear Solid 5. It got 10s, but the 10s it got seemed to be from people that didn't finish the game. I don't know anyone that actually completed the game and would give it a 10.
I haven't even finished the game, and I wouldn't give it a 10. So that's how I feel about the thing.
Yeah.
But in terms of going back to the single-player conversation really quick with that one, because it also puts a lot of other great things, great games that just came out and now are major franchises. If it sweeps everywhere, if this is like an infection, a disease, if you will, that spreads all over the place, that's really bad. Because keep in mind, Guerrilla Games with Horizon Zero Dawn, they just put that out at rave reviews from everything I'm hearing. Great game, but if Sony comes along and says, guys, we need multiplayer, what are you thinking?
But here's what fucks with me. It sells. Like, I can't hear that. If it's just I want more money, okay. I mean, fuck you, but okay. Like, you're just being a greedy bastard. Okay? And then I don't have to worry about the state of video games. Because then your entire reputation is attached with your greed of doing that. Okay?
Right.
But, like, these games that are single-player are selling. I don't understand the idea that the marketplace doesn't fucking let selling... Did they look at Zelda? The sales that thing... I mean,
Zelda destroyed it. Mario is going to destroy everything. I'm calling it now. In terms of, like, sales expectations, it's going to smash.
Nier, which was the sequel to a game that no one played, sold 2.5 million on not that high of a budget. It made way more than they spent. And that's why it's being treated so well. But, like, it was a single-player fucking game that didn't even have brand recognition.
It didn't have brand recognition, and it also didn't have access to all platforms. It's not on Xbox One.
That's true. It's only on PC and PlayStation, 2.5 million.
Yeah, that's impressive.
And while this technically is a remake, Crash Bandicoot sold incredibly well, the remakes. Now, that's more because people missed the brand, but they're still single-player games.
Absolutely.
These are PS1 games that everyone just wanted to play again. And, like, there's no downside to releasing a single-player Crash Bandicoot. I don't want a shared Crash Bandicoot universe. I want a fucking character. That's another, like, casualty of this whole thing. You can't have a character if you do a shared microtransaction game, really. You can't have like an identity with anyone that you're playing. It has to be an avatar first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like and that's fine for certain types of games. I mean, I love Final Fantasy 14, which is an MMO, where I would assume I'd play an avatar, but that's okay because the game makes sense for it. But like, are we even going to have interesting main characters anymore if all games are going to be like this?
Probably not at the rate this is happening. Or if you have like, you'll have that main character who's not as interesting, and they certainly don't plan to flesh him out as the game goes on because you're supposed to be in multiplayer. What are you doing? And that brings up another interesting question. How do you feel about forced multiplayer and games where it's blatantly obvious it shouldn't be there?
Well, I think the most famous for me, well, now is Dead Space 2, because I didn't even realize that was a thing. But I would have said Far Cry 3. Far Cry 3 had a 4-player multiplayer that no one would play with me, but I wanted to get all the trophies because I really liked the game, and I'll never get them because no one would ever play the multiplayer with me because it was a waste of time. So normally I just look at it and I'm like, you're wasting the money and the budget and the benefits, and it's kind of a shame. You do that as you will. If it brings in more people to buy the game, go ahead, but most of the time I don't feel like it really does anything. I don't feel like it adds as much value as they think. But I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a minute. And I'm gonna do the war on single player games. I was watching a video this morning, and this man, Rocco Bodie, the one of the main dudes of Mega 64, was talking about the death of the single player game. And he had a point that I kind of agree with, but I wish he was wrong, but I know he's kind of right. Where he kind of says, we have to take some of the responsibility because there is a sentence that a lot of us like to say, and it might be the reason we're here. Oh. I'll wait for that to get on sale. I think we say that a lot, especially with single-player games.
Oh, we do.
I know a lot of people that are just like, oh man, no matter how good a single-player game is, it's like, I'll wait till that's like 40. Because we just instinctively, we know it's going to be cheaper. Now, you can argue whose fault that is. Is that the studio for making it get a sale or not? But we are trained to do that now. That is just something that we expect to do. And that is a big factor for why games as service exists and why we're here and this like, we have to get all these sales right away. And I think I know the solution. And the solution is kind of bad for us.
Oh, no.
So Nintendo has it right. Never lower the price of your game. Keep it $60 at all times. You laugh.
No, I laugh because it's so true. That's exactly what Nintendo does. Like, even if you wanted to go out... Yeah, even if you wanted to go out and say, like, you wanted to get a copy of Smash Brothers Brawl. You know, that's on Wii. It's been a while. It's been a decade with that. Even if you wanted to go out and get that, it's still going to be insanely expensive because that's the way Nintendo games are treated on the market. Even the third-party market. That's the way it is.
If you're never waiting on a sale, then why shouldn't you just go in day one?
Good point.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the brilliant strategy behind this. No one is looking at the new Pokemon and saying, I'll wait for it to get cheaper, because it never will. So therefore, I might as well get it. Just came out. I want to as well get it while the hype's up, because that's all you have. That's, unfortunately, I think the best case scenario we have as a solution, and it's not good for us. It makes us spend a lot more money, but I don't see a better way out of this problem.
Oh, that point is so true, simply because, here's the big one, simply because we have been conditioned when it comes to Nintendo games where it comes out and you get it day one. That's what you do. No one questions this. You just do. I know that I have that aspect where, you know, the new Pokemon Sun and Moon came out. I was there day one. Picked up my copy, no problem. Everybody with when Metroid Samus Returns, the remake came out, grabbed it up day one. Why? Because that's what we do. We know it's not going to get any better. The only time Nintendo makes it better and does anything like that is if you want to buy a piece of hardware with it. Then they're willing to cut you a deal. But unless
That's
you're
right,
buying the hardware, no.
But hardware doesn't typically have the same. I mean, you don't. I mean, knock on wood, but there's no loot boxes for UI of a hardware yet. I mean, I don't know what Nintendo's cooking up. Maybe they'll just have loot box virtual Oh God, they're loot boxing virtual consoles.
Oh no,
they're probably doing it. That's such a Nintendo move. Oh God. Oh no.
A user interface loot boxes. Oh my God. You know.
And then like the Legendary is like a Wii game, and then like GameCube, and then most of the time you just get Nintendo games. And oh no.
Oh God, loot boxes and like Punch Out for Super Nintendo and stuff. Oh
man, you could do that too, but I just think for buying games.
Oh
this
yeah.
is already like horrific enough. My idea is like nightmare fuel. Oh God, Nintendo, never watch our show.
Oh, are you talking about just like full on like
I mean like
full on game lottery?
I am talking. Yes. I am saying, like, look, we still don't know what the virtual console deal is. We know there's something with this $20.
Oh, no.
And I'm just saying, like, what if it was a loot box? What if we loot box the entire virtual console and you could get duplicates that would give you credit? That would give you credit that you could eventually buy a game with.
Oh no, I just thought of it. I thought of the perfect way to do it so it doesn't seem so heinous. Not sure what you want to buy today? Why don't you do the I'm feeling lucky option, where you just click it, and we charge you and randomly give you a game to try.
No, you gotta make it more incentivized. You get 2 games that way.
Oh!
It can be anything, and you'll just never know. That's a good way. Oh, it's bloody genius. And then they can argue... It's
bloody horrible.
They can argue as well. It's not a bad deal because if you look at PlayStation, you pay $50 a month, and this is the way to offset the costs for you getting the cheaper monthly, the $20 a year instead of $10 a month, or whatever it is, $60 a year. So like, fuck, Nintendo, give me a cut of the money when you fuck everyone over.
While we're here bashing, I mean, that fits the narrative of ResetPress so much, doesn't it? While we're bashing AAA and just like taking them to task, we're talking about Nintendo and like a pseudo positive light, giving them ideas on how to screw customers, and then just saying, "Yeah, Nintendo, you know you want to hire ResetPress to help you."
Well, I've already.
We've come full circle.
I just feel like I deserve payment at this point. That's all. I could retire off the money I'm making fucking Nintendo off that idea.
Oh my God! We just bring Tanner back in, and it'll be perfect.
What do you mean we? I was the one that came up with this idea.
I help you shape it.
I'll probably share a little bit.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I feel so privileged.
I think we're getting to that hour mark.
We are.
So we need to start wrapping up. But yeah. How do you guys feel about loot boxes, everyone? You feel good about AAA gaming? I will say this. I want to end with a little bit of optimism, right?
Okay.
We have a lot of really good single-player games that came out this year.
Yes, we did.
Weren't fucked up. And, like, some of them did way better than expected. One of the ones that makes me really happy, it's not really a new game, but it was new for us, was Yakuza. Yakuza doesn't have any microtransactions. It doesn't have any ways to fuck you over. It's a single-player story with characters that return.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a damn fine game. And it sold better than expected. So that makes me happy. Nier, obviously, was a big one.
Horizon Zero Dawn?
Horizon Zero Dawn, for sure. And then the real thing that I can always look at and feel like I can breathe. Indie games. Whether they're good or bad, they don't fuck you over like that unless you kickstart the game. Usually you come out, you know what you're getting, and the money goes towards clear places. And they don't look as good half the time, but fucking Divinity came out, and it's like a perfect 10. And it's not even full price. It's a $40 game.
Cuphead came out, and it is the hottest game right now. The hottest.
And it's you buy and you own it. And that's as much as that had to be. Granted, I'm hearing people say, I'm entitled to difficulty or whatever the fuck that is. So that's a but the point is, it's a success story, and it's a success story without anyone being harmed, without anyone being tricked, without anyone having to worry about bank statements. You just bought a fucking game.
You buy it, you play it, you enjoy it.
And Nintendo has at least continued that.
Yeah.
It's doing season passes now, which is a slippery slope, but I'm okay with the season pass because it's just buying more content.
And I guess the way we can close that out for anybody who's still, like, oh, single player, it's on the decline, it's being attacked. Mario Odyssey, make sure to pick it up.
Yeah, they'll never sell. Who's gonna buy that piece of shit?
Who's gonna buy a Mario game on a Nintendo platform?
Everyone bought the Switch just so they could have fucking Vroom in the Sky.
Yeah.
And no other game.
Yeah, everybody bought a Switch just so they could snub Mario.
Yeah.
That's why. Okay,
okay.
We are shutting this down.
Okay.
We're getting way too silly. So that's been that's been the Reset Button for October 19, 2017. Once again, the other voice you hear is Eric. I am Patrick. See you later.
See you.